it as an occasional wear or whether you look at it as a wedding buy or even for important festivals, jewelry and watches are looked at as a segment of similar stature. Nobody really buys watches for time. Everybody buys watches for their, the asset value today, particularly if you look at luxury watches or as a fashion statement or as something, as a premium gift overall. So that was also one of the reasons why we wanted to touch upon the watches retailing and watches industry in a big way. And particularly what we have understood here at Retailer Media is that watches as a segment has grown from mass watches to much more premium, much more higher end watches. And I'm not even touching the luxury space of watches right now. So today in the next 30 minutes, we are really going to talk about how premium watches are, taking over in the Indian market and how Indian consumers are warming up to the idea of buying or not having one watch in their lifetime, but really multiple watches, occasion-based watches going forward. So Deepak, I'm going to start with you. At Timex, you brought a lot of experimentation in the watches industry. You've done some marvelous collaborations with auto brands, with fashion brands, which you've launched in India. What is the consumer response that you have seen to watches as you've innovated and as you've got new collections and through new collaborations in the country? And largely, how is the consumer behavior changing in the watches industry?
Yeah, thank you, Ritu, and good afternoon, everyone. When I saw Jewel X, I think X is the X factor for watches. Jewelry is big. So 90 billion versus 3 billion industry. But worldwide, as you mentioned, you have stores which are jewelry and watches. In India, we have been trying to do the same, but it's pretty difficult. Answering your question on how the watch industry is shaping up, how premiumization is helping, what's happening on luxury segment. So maybe I see a lot of jewelers here, so maybe I'll explain you a bit about what our company is all about. So Timex is not just Timex. Timex is a house of brands, and Timex is a group, and we do have about 15 licensed brand with us for the longest time. In the luxury space, we have Versace, then we have Salvatore Ferragamo, then we have Aston Martin, we have Guess Collection, we have Philippe Line, and in the premium segment or the fashion segment as we call, we have Adidas, we have Guess, we have Ted Baker, Nautica, and many others. And then of course we have our own brand, which is Timex. The beauty in India is, one of course, we are 1.4, 1.5 billion. There's a market for all segments. Yeah, so there's a market for mass products, which largely we cater through Timex. And then there is a, say, premium segment or fashion segment as we call, which we cater through the brands like Nautica, Guess and all, which largely are between 10,000 to 30,000. And then the third segment is bridge to luxury, where Aston Martin and Guess Collection and Philippe Line comes. And then you have luxury, which is, in excess of 1 lakh or more, where Versace and Salvatore Ferragamo comes. So India is seeing a surge in all these 4 segments. The reasons are different. The surge in the masstige is because ownership of watches in India is still about 16%. So every year about and that is 3 to 4. So Timex Titan becomes the relevant one, and that's driving the growth there. And generally premiumization across categories is fueling the growth in fashion and premium segment. People who were buying, Titan Timex before, they are graduating to buying the fashion brands. Bridge to luxury is again aspirational category, which a person who can't afford lakh or more, but can afford 50,000, 60,000, they're moving to bridge to luxury. And indulgence, especially post-COVID, is fueling the growth in luxury segment. So, good thing in India is all segments are growing, but the size of the segment is different. So highest growth came in luxury, but that was the smallest segment. Because in India, there are about 5 million people who can buy a watch for more than 1 lakh. So highest growth, but the smallest segment. less growth, but bigger segment. So which is fueling overall growth. India is seeing about 14% growth versus 8% historical growth as an industry in watches. So these are certain figures, and this is what is actually leading to growth. But what is unique about us as a group, and what are we trying to drive through having so many brands? You know, you add so many brands, it brings a lot of complexity, because talking to very different consumer sets. Of course, you need different strategy for fulfillment, you know, communication, marketing, inventory management. But watches, you know, number one, half of the watches sold in the country are not for self-consumption. You buy watches for gifting. Yeah. Number two, you generally do not want to buy the same brand, because watches is unlike apparel where if it suits you and you buy more of it, you want to graduate to the next brand. And that was the thought with us, that we should be part of life cycle for each and every consumer by offering different, you know, brands in different price segments. So from Timex to Guess to Aston Martin to Versace, you know, that's how the journey is. So consumer is staying within our portfolio, and we are giving an offering to each and every consumer basis, you know, their say expectation and the needs. So that's working really well for us, and that's what I feel. All the segments are growing, and we are partnering with brands who cater to all the segments, and that's really working well. The other thing which is changing in watch industry is it is no more a utility. Nobody, you know, buys a watch for checking time. Yeah. So it's more an expression of your individuality. It is a symbol of your status, and it should suit the wearing occasion. And that is also leading the growth, because once it becomes fashion, now I'm saying all this is actually fashion now, because it's not functional. It is more fashion. Once it becomes fashion, you need more of them, and you need different one for different occasion, and that's expanding the category. So these are lot of, you know, moving parts which have ensured a historical 8% growth for the industry, despite the disruption of smartwatches has gone to 15%, and industry has become about $3.5 billion.
That's actually brilliant. I mean, you know, and the strategy that you have taken in India is also probably, you know, in one way the right path, because today, you know, consumers are excited about certain brands. They are excited about certain, particularly, you know, I wanted to talk to you about sports watches. Do you see that as a growing category? We've also seen, you know, watches like Apple and so many others. But again, you know, I know at one point of time where Aman told me that it's one difficult segment to crack, which is smartwatches. It has its own sort of excitement for a while, but then it doesn't sort of last. So what do you think about smartwatches and particularly sports watches as a category?
Yeah, so smartwatches was zero in 2019. Yeah, from zero to 40 million watches in 2023, which was like, you know, the analog, which is traditional watches. India consumes about 60 million, which is built over 100 years. Yeah, and in 3 years, smartwatches went from 0 to 40 million, which is about 4 crores. In 2025, that has dropped by 30%, and it has become about 28 million, so 2.8 crores. So one is, both are very different segments. As I said, smartwatches are the most boring watches you can see. They are generally black in color, they are rectangular or round, and you do not even get to know the brand till the time the display gets, you know, done. So they are very functional, and they do not have that aesthetics to complement your, you know, your attire.
Right.
And that functionality is reducing, and people now actually are buying both. And previously, smartwatches were bought because people were not moving out and they didn't need an analog. And smartwatches were largely required for measuring your SpO2 and step count because COVID was there. So that is settling down, and it will start growing again after degrowth. But analog certainly has seen a huge surge because it's more fashion, and that's what everybody needs, and people need multiple of them. Now, sports segment is very different from smart. Sports is more of driven by what you love, your passion, and how it looks on your wrist. So, for example, Aston Martin, when we launched, Formula One fandom in India 3 years back was only about 3 million. And now, in 3 years, it has become about 6 billion, double. So, followers of Formula One, which is a paid subscription, you can't just buy. So, it's growing. So, that's where Aston Martin, when we launched, it's rocking. But what we have done is, it's also in Timex, we have a segment which is called Vector, which is inspired by various sports, including cricket, which is a religion. So, sports watches are like, again, complementing your lifestyle rather than functionality. So, they are a kind of sports fashion. Since I come from sports industry, so I'll tell you, 90% of sports shoes sold in India are not for sports. It's more for fashion. You know, you wear,
Correct.
yeah, you wear sports shoes, but do not play a sport. So similar thing is in watches. It's not like you need a functionality. It's complementing your lifestyle. You are more active lifestyle. You play a sport. You are a runner. You want to buy that kind of watch. So that segment is also growing very fast. While smartwatches are settling down, and probably it will start growing, but single digit now.
Sure. So sports watches, you're saying, comes from fandom rather more than anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And your lifestyle. Yeah.
And your lifestyle. Sure. Great. So I'm going to come back and ask more questions, but I'm going to right now jump on to Satish. Satish, you're creating watches which are, addressing a segment of business as fashion jewelry. And, what is it like to sell fashion jewelry watches in India? How do you only do women consumers, or are there men consumers also? And particularly, now let's say a brand like Guess or a brand like there's so many of them today,
Lots.
CK and others. So, they also sell themselves and position themselves as fashion jewelry watches more than, premium or luxury watches. So how do you compete with them, and what is your strategy?
Sure. Firstly, thanks a lot for having me here. Good afternoon, everyone. So, just to talk a little about Jokeronwich. So, Jokeronwich essentially is a fashion brand. I think that's how we have always positioned ourselves, as a fashion brand first, and then a watch and accessory brand. And the core reason why we started the brand was looking at the fact that at least 10, 11 years back, there was a sheer absence of youth-centered watch and accessory brand, which would have a unique blend of affordability and aspirations. And I think what we try our best to do is have designs, global designs, have hot trends, be the first ones to pick it up from the Western markets, and to be able to manifest them in our timepieces. Timepieces which sometimes also go beyond looking like a traditional timepiece, and I think that is where a jewelrized version of a watch, for example, I could possibly say that arguably Jokeronwich has been the pioneer to create a concept called watch stacking on the wrist, wherein you would see a lot of women wearing a watch and then couple one or two bracelets around it. Something which was first done by Annie Klein, the designer, in around 2009, 2010. And when I looked at it through a lot of social content which we used to consume coming from the Western brands, we thought this should become a category. It cannot remain a trend. So when we did that, we got phenomenal response, and then we thought, why not have bracelet watches, right? Something which very few brands were doing. For example, brands like the likes of Raga, or like, say, you said Guess, some of the very higher Bulgarian olives out of the reach. Again, then there's a difference in positioning, right? You have the luxury, you have the tending towards luxury, you have high premium, premium, mid-premium. Then you have affordable mass. So, we wanted to really be like a mass premium brand, be able to be extremely affordable, but also be able to offer everything which was pretty much hot, or is pretty much hot at that point of time. And I think that is where, we do a unique blend of jewelry and watches put together. The other reason we also try to, have a play of jewelry in watches is because we thought this category had been largely perceived to be a men first category, which I think is still sort of true to a certain extent. And I think all the players, big, small, medium, everyone is trying to sort of break that shackle by offering and creating something definite for the women audience. So I think we were the first ones to say that, we will start off with offering everything for women. And, it just can't get better if you do not have jewelry around watches. So I think, they just complement each other, wherein for us, watch was a core proposition, jewelry remained as the periphery, and then, the play with bracelets, rings. We also created certain marketing concepts called love triangle, for example, which meant a watch and a bracelet along with a ring, right? So it's like a triangulation of sorts. And some of these things worked very perfectly when it came to gifting. So while we did not launch it with an idea or an assumption that it would do well for gifting, but then the more and more it started succeeding, we thought there's a huge market in what we are doing, and just continue doing that.
And so you gift it like a box, so all three things together in that box.
Yeah.
And so how big is gifting as a category for you?
For us, see, I think, the data is fairly blurred, wherein we are not able to ascertain if you are bought it for yourself or you bought it to gift someone. But with some bit of, the consumer research which the team has done quite some time back, I think we believe that 15 to 20% of our volumes, bare minimum, are for gifting. And the data do validated when we get a lot of demand coming from the marketplace team. That, watch has been classically, I think if you look at, how Titan, launched the couple watches, and I think I was looking at the recent series in India. So like the initial question, I think precious jewelry has always been a storehold of wealth, right? While luxury watches in today's time is a storehold of wealth, they only appreciate some of the very, very, finest luxury brands. But otherwise, it's been a storehold of, class, character, consumption, how you are as a personality, right? And I think watches continue to be that. And the only strong addition when it sort of comes in within marriages is, when people love to sort of gift. And I think it's gone out of marriages. People just want to gift each other, their loved ones, a good timepiece, because it also is a storehold of memory. If you look at it, again, a long-lasting piece. You always look back at it, and it creates a sense of nostalgia, which remains forever.
I completely agree with you, and I think the time for fashion jewelry and dressing it with I know, for example, the last 2 years have been a color of green. I've seen green watches pretty much by every brand. I believe, and I was trying to read some story around it, sorry.
But the right green, emerald green, that's the color of luxury,
green,
right?
Yeah.
And the Roman numeral.
So that's become suddenly a big trend, which, I was talking to a watch company before this, while they couldn't come, but they said it was actually started by an astrologer in India who said, wear green watches, and that is where green suddenly became the color of rage. And today green watches are everywhere.
Yeah, actually, that's right. There was an astrologer who has a huge following. He said green with Roman numbers, missing 9. So it started selling well. So probably we'll have to look for more astrologer basis your design which you are launching. Yeah.
Imagine. And I was going to tell you, go to the designers. You need to go to astrologers. Okay, so Sanchit, I'm going to come to you. So for me, when Rotoris was launched, it was really out of the blue in terms of, Indian brand thinking of watches which are premium and high premium segment of watches. We've actually, I know I've been speaking to Titan for the longest time, and they've been struggling in this segment, while of course in their mass segment they've been very, very popular. So what sort of captured your attention in India to launch this brand, Rotoris, and to start thinking of premium watches actually organically grown from India as a brand? And I know that you work on this very interesting model which Rolex also does globally, which is to create that artificial scarcity, and then people want to really own that watch. It's something that is not available. And how has that model really worked for you?
Thank you, Ritu, and good afternoon, everyone. I think I'll first address the last point that you kind of pointed out. People look at is at scarcity. How I look at it is exclusivity. And there's a fine difference, right? Scarcity is that you mindfully make sure that the supply is less than the demand. How we look at it is that we will only focus on quality and only produce the quantity that we can produce with absolute quality and have high craftsmanship into it. Now, coming to the point of how we envisage the concept, I feel I come from a luxury background. I mean, 15 years working for luxury hotels, retail. One thing that I knew was that luxury it's just not a price tag, right? It's about exclusivity, it's about craftsmanship, it's about heritage. And most of the luxury brands have always been leveraged on the heritage and the story that they had on a 200-year of legacy, 150 years of legacy, 100-year-old legacy. And that's what people lack when they start a new brand in the luxury segment. Now, when we started, there were 3-4 things that were constantly revolving around our head. First thing was character, craft, emotion, and community. I said, we do not have a 100-year-old legacy to bank upon. How do we build this? So everything revolved around these 4 things. The emotion, when I talk about emotion, that is where exclusivity comes in, right? The rich and the privileged people in the country, the millionaires, the billionaires, they have a privilege to own something exclusive, right? But there are a lot of aspirational consumers who do not get their hands on exclusivity. And that's what we wanted to offer, the aspirational consumer, which is going to be tomorrow's millionaire, billionaire, right? And then we saw that how we can link it up to an emotion. And that emotion that came is aspiration itself, becoming more. From a student to an entrepreneur to a professional, everybody is aiming to become more, right? And that's one emotion that all of us probably share. So everything revolved around that emotion that Rotoris is not a watch, it's not just a watch brand, but it's a brand which will be there in your journey of becoming more. Legacy. But what can I build? And that's an aspiration that we all share of becoming more. I think that's what led to, the origin of this brand. And craft. Even if your emotion, you can reinforce in the emotion, marketing, content, it can be relatable, but until and unless nobody can actually drive loyalty unless the product has some merit in it, right? So that's where the craft comes in. When you talk about craft, we wanted to use materials which are used in probably a 4 lakh rupee watch or a 3 lakh rupee watch, where 316L surgical grade stainless steel, sapphire crystal, dome-shaped sapphire crystal, double dome-shaped sapphire crystal. Sorry, these are just terminologies, but it can be intimidating. But that's the kind of things that people find in a 3 to 4 lakh rupee watch. And the price point that we were, when people started seeing those specs into a watch, and that too offering that exclusivity, the aspiration automatically came. So I think that's what was very important thing that helped us to build Rotoris.
Sure. So, I mean, and it's a very interesting model. It's the first time I've heard of it, and, particularly working like a registry key and where you know what community you're belonging to. But what is your retail model then? Do you sell it through like digital?
So yes, what happens is we have an allocation process. You sign up for an early access, and once we launch, we send an access to purchase the watch for only exclusive for 48 hours, and you have to make your purchase. And that access is approved or rejected by us, but hardly, I mean, the idea is to make sure that people who are becoming more should get the access and they belong to that community. Somebody who doesn't belong to that community will feel out of place. Right? That's not what we want. So, be it be a student or a professional or an entrepreneur who wants to become more is a part of the community. Answering to your question, it's a very important thing to make sure that we give the right experience where we are living in a phygital world. So in the first drop, we wanted to test the waters. So we partnered with a speakeasy bar, and for a month we did an experiential pop-up, appointment-based, where people could come and see what they've bought. And they could even, they can see the watch that they've bought. And also the new owners who want to buy the watch, they can come and experience and join the early access list. And they were also one of the form where we had an option of virtual consultation on the website, where people can go and book a virtual consultation, pay upfront fee of 2,500, which is redeemable on their purchase. And people came on virtual consultations, people came on the Rotoris house, and the format was very simple. It was very experiential. There was no transaction. People could come, order food, order cocktails, enjoy the hospitality, while the customer experience curator walks them through an immersive horological experience. It was never about selling the watches on that shop floor. It was all about giving that immersive experience about what the craftsmanship is about, what is the character of the watch. So for example, I'm wearing a Monarch right now, and we say Monarch is for those who build what's timeless, right? And that's why people who build what's timeless are surrounded by complications. And that's why this happens to be one of the most complicated watches. So, you see the symmetry between the craft character. So this was all about storytelling, immersive experience that we built in that 1 year. And now we are coming up with 2 stores by the end of this month, one in DLF Summit Plaza in Gurgaon, and other is that Speakeasy Bar, which we have now finalized as a permanent Rotoris house. And the format is very simple. Every Rotoris man can come to the Rotoris house and experience privileged, and personalized experience. So I think that's what we're building. So it's a in the phygital world, we've tried to capture most of the parts of engaging the consumer and not just about. So we were never about a transaction. It was about that relationship. It was about entering the customer into a community. I think that's what led to. In today's day and age, if you look at today's consumer, nobody likes to be sold. Right? The more you try to sell, the more he's running around. And that's why people are running ads on Meta, burning a lot of money. We couldn't relate to it, and neither does the consumer.
So, you mentioned, this also brings me to my next question to ask you is, and this is to all of you, do you think watches retail happens better out of exclusive stores, brand stores, rather than departmental stores or multi-brand stores? Do you think that's the future there?
I agree to it. Why? Because today's consumer, like I said, is focusing more on experience than the transaction. If it's run by somebody else, of course, the main criteria is not for him to create an experience for the customer, but it is to sell the numbers. But of course, it varies from the kind of price bracket that you're operating at. Let's say a price bracket of 5 to 10,000 rupees. Of course, it's not experiential. It's pure transaction, right? You buy the watch, you go your way, I go my way. But I think the more you go up the category in terms of pricing, the more expectations the consumer has. So in the luxury, probably if you're selling a 10 lakh rupee watch, the experience has to be far more superior than somebody who's selling a 2 lakh rupee watch. So I think that's the kind of symmetry that I feel is there.
Yeah, as Sanchit mentioned, we happen to sell in different categories. So if it's a luxury brand, then of course it is more to do with an exclusive environment, to engage, to try, because it's a lifestyle you want to see. I never saw in the past a full-size mirror in watch stores. Now there's no watch store which doesn't have a full-size mirror, because now you are pairing it with your attire. So, but at the same time, Timex I sell on quick commerce. You can order at Blinkit, Zepto, whichever, and get in 10 minutes. So it's to do with the consumer sect. It's to do with your price point. It's to do with the objective. Yeah, why you are buying and how much are you investing. Of course, premium and luxury engagement is way higher, and you don't want to buy online. So Versace, for example, online is about 7%, 93% is exclusive stores or premier multi-brand stores. Timex is, other way around. So it depends on, the consumer segment and the brand which you are dealing with.
I think to add to that, fashion and premium watch brands do fairly well even both multi-brand format as well as their exclusive formats. And multi-brand, what happens is that largely, irrespective of who the consumer is, a man or a woman, there could be a need for the watch, but you might not have a very strong brand loyalty, right? You might like 8 brands, at the same point of time, and whichever style at that point of time you like, you might end up buying it. But the moment you tend to sort of indulge into becoming a luxury watch owner, you're fairly very clear of what you want to buy and why you want to buy that particular piece and model. So I think that's where exclusivity and experiential mannerism of being within the retail ecosystem becomes far more important, and you would really not see a multi-brand barring certain let's say the likes of Ethos who have only a very curated experience. I think that's how it works. And sometimes it's also the region. I think a tier 1 metro versus a tier 2, tier 3, we have seen exclusive stores doing pretty well because there's a dearth of, multi-branded outlets within the malls. Yeah.
One of the reasons why jewelry does so well, particularly fine jewelry, is their buyback. You can sell gold jewelry, and I know luxury watches work like that too, super luxury watches. Do you think watches, even in premium and bridge to luxury segments, will work on that model? Is there a possibility in times to come?
My take, just a quick take, I don't think so, because I think it's existed for nearly a couple of centuries. Watches which are sort of just tending to become luxury. They could never, and not all the, in fact, within the watch luxury brands, which at least some of the finest 80, 85 brands, only 10 to 15 watch brands command the appreciation, and within that, 3 to 4. So it's hard. And I think anything which is a premium, super premium, no, because at the end of the day, the metal is not precious, right? So forget, even if it has to become, the brand value has to really become very, very aspirational.
Yeah, I think premium and bridge to luxury probably will not reach there anytime soon, yeah, but in luxury and especially the watch brands, you have fashion brands who make watches. That will not happen there. It will, even at the luxury space, it is more to do with the brands who are hardcore watch manufacturers. Yeah.
I think with Rotoris, this has come to me as a surprise because we never expected that there would be a reselling happening. But to my surprise, there were people who resold their watches at double the price they bought because the other people couldn't get an opportunity to buy because we only produced 2100 pieces in the first drop. In the next drop, there's 2500 pieces which is coming, and of course the early access list has blown away, and the people have realized that there are a lot of people on the early access. So there are transactions that are happening because how we get to know is because people reach out to us to change registry. Right? So there has been customer, of course I don't have the number to give you. It's a very minuscule number, but there has been transactions where we have got reached out for changing the registry. So to my surprise, because of course, like Deepak sir said, that it is only happening at the top tier luxury level, but in affordable luxury.